Amateur Radio News and Notes for Friday, September 19th, 2025. I'm Ed Kavik, November 2, Echo Charlie. In the log this week, Equatorial Guinea suspends amateur radio licenses. We'll have a DXpedition spotlight for V6D in the Federated States of Micronesia. We'll talk about some MVARC Nets on the air, see what's happening with DX, get a solar activity update, talk about some upcoming contests, and as always, take a look at some interesting online radio content. Last week, the government of Equatorial Guinea suspended all amateur radio licenses in the country. Ahura EG reports that the temporary suspension was due to a foreign amateur radio operator accessing, quote, sensitive areas such as Annobon and Batit using telecommunications equipment not authorized for his activity. The article does not specify the operator in question. However, during the period, there was a DXpedition being led by Eurus YL2GM and Eugene EA5EL in the country. On their website, they mentioned that when they attempted to operate from Annobon, they returned back to Malabo with some adventures and were planning to return home. Eurus and Eugene had been operating earlier from Malabo in a hotel near the ocean as 3C3W and had logged 21,544 QSOs to club log. Updates have been few in the last week, but hopefully amateur radio licensing will be reinstated in Equatorial Guinea and the situation will resolve favorably. Some sources of information can be found at links in the show notes. And now it's time for a DXpedition spotlight. The V6D team is getting ready to bring Weno Island in the Chuuk state of the Federated States of Micronesia on the air from September 22nd to October 6, 2025. The team includes several experienced operators from Germany, and they will bring transceivers from Elecraft, a mix of amplifiers, verticals and with elevated radials for 160 meters to 30 meters, loops and rhombic loops for 40 meters to 6 meters, a 5-band wire beam for 20 meters to 10 meters, and other necessary gear. They plan to operate a mix of modes on 160, 80, 40, 30, 20, 17, 15, 12, 10, and 6 meters, and will be running splits, so don't call them on their transmission frequencies. They plan to upload their logs daily to Club Log. At their last update on September 10th, they said that they were distributing luggage to the team so that each one of them will carry well over 20 kilograms of equipment, and they'll fly from Berlin via Helsinki, Tokyo, and Guam to Chuuk. This promises to be an exciting DXpedition to chase, and they plan on having QSL cards available via Clublog OQRS. The V6D site can be found at v6d.mydx.de for more information. Good luck and good DX. And now let's talk about some MVARC Nets on the air. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on our repeater, we always have the 2-meter FM net. That is immediately followed by the 2-meter digital net on the same frequency using Yaesu System Fusion C4 FM. Then on the weekends, we've got the MVARC Slow Speed CW Roundtable on Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time at 3.565 megahertz on CW. We'll go to whatever speed you're comfortable with. It's usually 12 to 15 words a minute. And then we have immediately following that, the MVARC Cherry Tree Net on Saturday and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. That's at 3.920 megahertz LSB, where we always have a very active conversation, and you are always welcome to join us. And we got a little taste of it before, but let's take a look at what's happening with DX. There will be a good amount of DX on the bands this week, including, as we said, from the Federated States of Micronesia. Also, Market Reef, St. Maarten, Svalbard, St. Pierre, and Miquelon Islands. These guys have been blasting into the East Coast. Christmas Islands, Karpathos Islands, Norfolk Island, Palestine, Tanzania, Rwanda, Colombia, Mali, Kuwait, Solomon Islands, and Antarctica. A calendar of DXpeditions can be found at dxnews.com/calendar. And now it's time for a solar activity update. As we go to press, the solar flux index was 150 and the estimated sunspot number was 119, with 7 numbered sunspot regions visible from Earth. Over the last week, the SFI has increased. Solar activity has been at low levels recently, and the geomagnetic field was at quiet to unsettled levels, and the KP index reached 2 yesterday. The solar wind peaked at 614 kilometers per second. Solar activity is predicted to be low, with geomagnetic activity at quiet levels today and tomorrow, and quiet to active levels on Sunday. The chance of solar radiation storms at the S1 or greater level is low at 1% today through Sunday. R1 to R2 radio blackouts are possible in the near term, with a predicted probability of 35% through Sunday. R3 or greater blackouts are unlikely, with a 1% chance predicted today through Sunday. There's a chance of 6-meter propagation, so keep an eye on the band and the spotting clusters to be ready for the next time the magic band does its thing, and it remains a fantastic time for amateurs to get on the air and work the world. Good sources of real-time solar information include spaceweatherlive.com and solarham.com. A good overview of conditions can be found at dx.qsl.net/propagation. To see delayer absorption data and associated radio blackouts, visit the NOAA DRAP page. And to see real-time maximum usable frequency, or MUF, and critical frequency, or FOF2 information from radio sun data, visit prop.kc2g.com. And now it's time to take a look at some upcoming contests. On the contest calendar this weekend, we will see the ARRL 10 GHz at Up contest, the Scandinavian Activity Contest on CW, the New Jersey QSO Party, the Texas QSO Party, the Iowa QSO Party, the New Hampshire QSO Party, the QRP Afield event, the Washington State Salmon Run, Wisconsin Parks on the Air, the North American Sprint on RTTY, the BARTG Sprint PSK 63 contest, the Run for the Bacon QRP contest, and the ARS Flight of the Bumblebees QRP contest. As always, the K1USN SSTs, MSTs, and the CWTs will also be on the air. The full contest calendar with events and exchanges can be found at contestcalendar.com. And finally, let's wrap things up with some interesting online radio content. Top soda chaser John NT6E does his first soda activation with friends. Mark KD7DTS and Ara N6ARA talk soda, microwave operation, contesting, and cats on sofas on the air. Michael KB9VBR looks at Chameleon's new CHA M25 loading coil. IMSI Guy takes a look at a cheap DC power supply and finds lots of noise. Steve KM9G takes a look at some new keys from Jaegu. Matt M0DQW looks at the upgraded TID radio H3 Plus. Jason KM4ACK talks about APRS retransmissions. Colin MM0OPX mods his QMX Plus to have an internal battery. John AE5X tests his Hermes Light 2 for receiver performance and spectral purity. Dr. Tamitha Skov WX6SWW discusses recent space weather conditions. Doug Boak, 87DUG, hunts POTA on the go with his KH1. Manuel, WP4TZ, does a photo walk of Old San Juan, Puerto Rico, and activates POTA. Snorin takes a look at the Meshtastic-capable Cardputer ADV. Walt, K4OGO, uses the GHV5 V-dipole while camping. Mike, K8MRD, ups his bushcrafting game with a tarp to provide shelter for POTA. Steve KM9G looks at some USB, PD, and PPS power solutions. Cred KM6LYW sets up a super low-cost data hotspot for VHF using a DigiPi. Matt M0DQW looks at the USDX Plus HF transceiver. Ramon EA5IW takes us along for some mountaintop QRP. Tom N3WS shows a simple wireless rotator for the Buddy Hex antenna. Rob N1NUG looks at the Choyang LC90, and Walt K4OGO tries out the HF Signals ZBitX. Well, that is it for this week. I've been Ed, November 2 Echo Charlie. As always, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a great week ahead. Best 73, and we'll see you next week.